Hello friends and welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm really glad you're here. My name is Becca and this channel is all about my love for spinning, knitting, weaving, crocheting, sewing, all the fiber things. I invite you to grab whatever project you have on the go and join me. Let's make some stuff. In my last video, I shared a new project or a set of projects that I was planning for the year ahead. 4 seasons of graphic colorwork socks from Oakwood Knits. I made the pair for spring, and I'll admit I was a little obsessed, and so I have already made the summer and the fall. And before I finish this project entirely, I wanted to bring all of you along to knit the winter socks together. Before we get into that, I want to share with you a little bit about what I'm wearing. This sweater I made in 2014 for my husband, but it turned out a little small for him, so I wear it. I love the colors. This pattern is from this book called Medieval Inspired Knits. This is by Anna Karen Lundberg, and it is a series of patterns that are all inspired by artwork on the walls and ceilings of medieval churches in a very specific region, Uppland, Sweden. And the patterns are all using this limited color palette that exists in the artwork itself. So these turquoises and oranges are mirrored throughout the entire book. So for this sweater, I combined 2 different patterns from this book, Medieval Inspired Knits. The first one, I took the colorwork chart from this pattern, which is called the Sanga Brocade Flower Jacket. And I took the overall light turquoise and dark turquoise with the contrasting cuff color on the cuffs and the collar, as well as the hem. And then for the actual shape of the sweater, I took this pattern for a men's sweater. This is the Norsunda wreath pullover, and you can see I've taken the general shape from this, but also this contrasting splash of different color at the cuffs and the collar, which I just love. So overall, the sweater is knitted in 2 basic colors. The light turquoise, which is called Opal Heather, and the dark turquoise, which is called Midnight Heather, with this contrasting color. And I wanted to share this sweater with you today because it's knit in the same yarn that we'll be using for the Stardew Valley socks from Oakwood Knits. I have used this yarn for many different projects, including sweaters, but also shawls and other socks, gloves. I love this yarn, and so I'll talk to you a little bit today about the yarn, how it works in these socks, and my experience with the patterns, and then we'll get to knitting together. In February, I was making another project and I needed some white sock yarn to go with that project. And so I went on to Knit Picks, and while I was browsing around, I discovered these patterns. There are 4 different patterns from Oakwood Knits, and these are all representative of the turning of the seasons in a video game called Stardew Valley. The artwork in this game is sort of this blocky style, and so it lends itself quite nicely to knitting, where you have a grid pattern that you're going to knit with. So I found these patterns, I instantly fell in love with them, and actually they bumped off the project that I was buying the yarn for in my queue because I was so excited. So there are 4 different patterns. Each one represents things that you might see in this video game in each of the seasons. So there are landscape backgrounds, sky and mountains and trees. There are different kinds of flowers, different kinds of garden crops that you have in the game. Part of the game is a gardening game, so there's different crops that you have. And then some of the patterns have animals in them, or other themes that pop up in various seasons. So they're super cute. And Knit Picks sells these patterns either individually as downloadable PDFs, or you can buy them as a kit with all of the different yarns that you need for the pattern. The patterns are written for Knit Picks Palette, which is the yarn that's in this sweater, but they also have an option for Knit Picks Stroll, which is really nice that they give you two different options of different kinds of yarn, and we'll talk about the different kinds of yarn here in a moment. So Knit Picks is selling these patterns either as a downloadable PDF that you can just buy and download, which is what I did, or you can buy them as a kit with all the different yarn that you need to make the project. As I mentioned, these patterns call for Knit Picks Palette or Knit Picks Stroll, and there are color lists and color keys for each of these yarn types depending on which one you want to use. The main difference between the yarn is that the Knit Picks palette is 100% wool, whereas the Knit Picks Stroll has a bit of nylon in there. So possibly better for socks to have a little bit of nylon for making them wear a little bit longer. But I already had the entire range of Knit Picks palette in my stash because my wonderful husband gifted this to me, the entire 150 color collection several years back, and so I've been just using it for all sorts of things as I've discussed. Also, Knit Picks recently released about a dozen new colors, and so of course I had to go and buy those as well. For those of you who might be video game completionists, can you guess which one I might be? So the palette yarn is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It's a 2-ply fingering weight yarn, and comes in a 50-gram ball. This is slightly less, I've used it, but a 50-gram ball, which is about 1 3/4 ounces. It is 231 yards in length. The colors are gorgeous, consistent, deep, wonderful colors, and I find that they do have some variation from one dye lot to another. So if you are using doing a project where you need that consistency across the individual color, you'll want to buy dye lots. They do have the lot number on the band. I find that this yarn is also reasonably priced. So for a 50-gram ball, currently it's about $5.50. You can get a better deal if you can find it on sale, which they do frequently have sales at Knit Picks. And as I've said, I've used this yarn for so many different things. I really love it. I'm definitely a fan of the Knit Picks palette yarn. Not sponsored, by the way. We've purchased all of these yarns. Yeah, so this is Knit Picks palette yarn, and this is the yarn that's used for the Oakwood Knits Stardew Valley socks. The 4 different patterns are very similar in construction. So the socks are knit one at a time. This is spring. They're knit one at a time from the cuff down the leg. They start with a ribbing at the top and into the leg chart patterns. The heel is an integrated heel where you knit back and forth and then continue on for the foot in the round, finishing off with the toe. The live stitches, the remaining live stitches on the toe, are then grafted together with Kitchener stitch. So all the patterns are similar in this construction. And then basically they just have different graphic charts for the leg and for the cuff. The first sock that I made, I went very slowly, trying to make sure that my floats were all loose enough that there would be enough stretch, and that the fabric would have enough give so that when I put it on, they're actually comfortable to wear. On the second sock, I realized that as I was switching to the next yarn, I could just put my finger in there and wrap the float around it. That would give it enough stretch. As I'm knitting it though, I noticed that sometimes the individual stitches look really loose and I have to sort of tug on them. But once they're blocked and set, it looks great. There's no stitches that are loose and sticking out, and the socks actually do have enough give that I can pull them up over my heel without feeling like I'm going to break any of the stitches, which would be a shame. And on my foot and on my leg, they're not compressing too much and they're very comfortable. So this is spring. They're knit one at a time. So I have 2. We have summer. Again, we have different trees and different crops, different flowers. And this one has little fish at the bottom at the sea. And then fall, we have the trees have changed color. They're lovely, cute animals. We've got sheep and ducks and chickens with little hearts in between. The toes and the cuffs are solid color, so no no charts there. And then we have fall crops, including mushrooms and pumpkins and some fall flowers. So all of these 3 are finished and blocked with a pair of socks, so 2 each, and we're ready to do the winter. As I started on the spring, I thought I had looked over all of the socks, all of the different patterns, and thought that they were all basically the same. But there was one thing that I noticed as I finished the spring and went to the summer, is that each of the patterns is written with a different cuff pattern. So the spring starts with a 1x1 rib, which is what I did, and I like the way it turned out. I think it looks fine. When I picked up the summer pattern, I realized that was written as a 2x2 rib. The fall was 3x3, and then the winter was back to 2x2. So I wanted all of my socks, since I was planning to make all of them, to be consistent and the same across the set. And so because I had made the first pattern with 1x1, I just continued on and made the rest of them with the 1x1 rib. But that is something to consider if you want all of your socks to be the same. You might want to decide which of the cuff patterns you want to use. The difference in the ribbing between the patterns is a minor thing, but it is something to keep in mind. One final note about the knitting: there will be a lot of ends to weave in because there are a lot of color changes. And some of the rows have 3 colors at once, which is what makes these patterns so amazing. But that is the final step, and I realized that this is not the most fun thing for many people. So the way I managed it was to make sure to weave in all the ends after each sock after I finished, so that I wouldn't have a huge pile of weaving in ends at the end. That made it much more manageable. But I know that's not everyone's favorite part about the knitting, so I wanted to mention it. All right, let's go make the Stardew Valley Winter Socks by Oakwood Knits. That's it for this video. Have you ever made socks with stranded or Fair Isle knitting? Let us know in the comments what your experience was like. Thank you so much for spending some of your creative time with me. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!